Cameron, we want to get your reflections on the year's anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II passing. But first of all, let's just talk about Prince Harry, because he has now been pictured visiting St George's Chapel, Windsor, to pay his respects to his grandmother. He's on a very quick visit to the UK, but he was spotted.
Yes, he was spotted, and the photograph is doing the rounds on social media. St George's Chapel, of course, is where Queen Elizabeth II has her final resting place. She's buried in King George VI Memorial Chapel alongside her parents. Prince Philip and Princess Margaret, her sister's ashes, are also buried in that chapel. So Prince Harry has been pictured visiting that building this morning, and from my understanding, a number of other members of the royal family have also made private visits to that chapel this morning to pay their respects and reflect on the fact that it is a year since we lost Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, Prince Andrew, he lives very close to St George's Chapel in Windsor at Royal Lodge. No confirmation as to whether or not he went to visit his mother's grave. However, nonetheless, I do understand that some members of the royal family have been there, and Prince Harry is expected to fly to Germany either today or tomorrow for the start of his Invictus Games in Düsseldorf. So yeah, very busy few days for Prince Harry, but one of quiet reflection today by the looks of it.
Yeah, and certainly we understand that Prince and Princess of Wales have arrived at St David's Cathedral to mark the anniversary with a small private service there. But I'm just thinking, exactly this time a year ago, Cameron, I was speaking to you outside the gates at Balmoral. We heard the sirens, we saw the blacked out Range Rovers coming and going at that time. We knew that things weren't looking good at that stage.
Yes, Mark, actually, I believe that was the day after, because I remember sitting with you in the studio. I was meant to be on a day off, actually, and obviously rushed to the studio as soon as that first statement came out. And we were slowly getting more and more bad news, really. We first heard that members of the royal family were essentially dropping everything and making their way up to Scotland to be with the Queen. Then we heard that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle would be flying up to Scotland to join family members. Then Harry and Meghan's team backtracked and said it was only Prince Harry who'd be flying up to Scotland, but all these signs suggested that something very serious was happening at Balmoral. And then, of course, we got the very sad news at 6:30, and I was actually in Luton Airport trying to get one of the last flights to Scotland, to Aberdeen, so I could speak to you the following day from outside the gates of Balmoral Castle. But when the statement from Buckingham Palace dropped in my emails at 6:30, it was surreal, because there was a couple of minutes delayed between me getting it and everyone receiving it on their phones via various news alerts, and you could just see the passengers' faces all across the terminal just drop in disbelief, and people on the plane were crying. It was a really surreal day that I'm certainly not going to forget in a hurry.
And we remember that Harry was trying to make it, I think, to Aberdeen Airport, obviously the closest to Balmoral, to make it in time, and he failed. One wonders again that maybe he's reflecting today, a year on, after this visit to the chapel at Windsor.
Well, an RAF plane was scrambled to take Prince William, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and then Sophie Wessex, now of course Duchess of Edinburgh, up to Aberdeen, and unfortunately they also didn't get there in time to say goodbye, because their plane landed after 10 minutes past 3 into Aberdeen, which is the time from the Queen's death certificate that states that she died at that time. Prince Harry was on a separate private plane flying up, about an hour or two delayed compared to the other members of the royal family. There's some speculation as to why he wasn't on the same plane. However, we don't have confirmation as to that. But what we do know is that at the Queen's bedside on that day was the then Prince Charles, now King, Camilla, and Princess Anne. So she had two of her oldest children by her bedside that day at Balmoral.
And today, the Queen's son, now King Charles, is remembering his mother privately at Balmoral, apart from us seeing him at that 30-minute service this morning at a church nearby.
Yes, so the King and Queen, it was kept quite under wraps until this morning actually. They attended a private prayer service at Crathy Kirk, that's the church very near Balmoral Castle, where the late Queen was a frequent visitor and worships there every Sunday. The King and Queen were also joined by a few family members, Lady Sarah Chatto and the Earl of Snowdon. That is the late Queen's niece and nephew, Princess Margaret's two children, and Lady Sarah Chatto and Earl Snowdon's children were also there alongside Lady Sarah Chatto's husband as well. So it was a small, intimate family affair. But as you say, a vast majority of today, the King and Queen will be spending privately reflecting on the Balmoral estate and perhaps in the castle itself where the Queen passed away. As for the Prince and Princess of Wales, they have arrived at St David's Cathedral for a short private service, and we believe at some point the Princess of Wales is going to be laying a bouquet of flowers elsewhere in the cathedral post-event, and I'm sure at some point we might see them greet members of the public too.
Cameron, thank you very much indeed.